Discussing the January 6th attack on the Capitol in a public Q&A session with Bill O'Reilly. The Houston Chronicle reports Trump said if he could do it over again, he would do more to ensure National Guard troops were deployed on January 6th. Trump saying, quote, "I would have insisted they had proper protection." Also adding he recommended a day before the riot that 10,000 troops be deployed at the Capitol, but it didn't happen. However, Trump, in his usual antics, went on to say there was, quote, "love in that crowd" at the Ellipse, speaking about the Stop the Steal rally on January 6th. The Trump-O'Reilly tour continues today in Dallas. But joining me right now here on the show is Mary Trump, Donald Trump's niece and host of the new podcast, The Mary Trump Show. Well, good for you on that one. So glad to have you back on here. I'm going to remind our viewers, Mary, that you have a PhD in clinical psychology. So what did you make thinking about your uncle, listening to him say a year later nearly that if he could, he would have done more to ensure National Guard troops were deployed on January 6th? What was your reaction to that?
My reaction was pretty much what it always is when I hear Donald lying and obfuscating and continuing to get away with his lies, is that he will stoop to nothing. There is no bottom here. And he's very mindful that he is being given an opportunity to continue to muddy the waters and quite honestly, rewrite history, which is an incredibly dangerous moment for this country. And he's not doing it for any other reason than that he believes it will allow him to continue to stay the leader of the Republican Party and maybe even regain power in this country.
So even where he says there was love in that crowd, do you think he really believes that?
I think he doesn't understand what that word means, honestly. And I'm not kidding. I really do not believe that Donald Trump understands what love is, what it feels like to love somebody or to be loved. And because nobody who does understand that concept could possibly equate the violence, the vitriol, the racism, the anti-American sentiments that were expressed on that January 6th during that violent insurrection could possibly confuse it with anything resembling love.
That's an extraordinary statement there. Something that Trump was not asked about by Bill O'Reilly last night was the text messages that were made public this week, including one from your cousin, Donald Trump Jr., texting former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows saying, quote, "We need an Oval Office address. He has to lead now. It has gone too far and gotten out of hand." And that wasn't the only text from DJT Jr. He also wrote, quote, "He's got to condemn this," then there was an expletive, ASAP. "The Capitol Police tweet is not enough." Mary, were you surprised to see these texts from Trump Jr. and that they were sent to Mark Meadows?
No, I mean, none of the texts, the panic text from anybody really surprised me because I think many of these people, including my cousin, knew what was going to happen on January 6th, but it got out of control. And they knew it, and they knew that the only person who could rein it in was Donald. It doesn't also surprise me that Donald didn't confront his father directly, because quite honestly, Donald doesn't really listen to anybody unless they're telling him what he wants to hear. And Donnie knew, my cousin Donnie knew that the message he was sending was something Donald would not want to hear. And also, he's the last person in the world Donald would want to hear from in that context. So partially it was because Donnie knew it was the wrong message. And secondly, he's a coward and did not want to confront his father.
That's so interesting. And by the way, as you know, it was not just your cousin who texted Mark Meadows on January 6th. It was also revealed that the Fox News hosts, multiple of them, sent these texts pushing Donald Trump to try to calm the violence. And after their text messages were read aloud this week by Congresswoman Liz Cheney, instead of addressing the substance, Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, they went after the messenger. Take a listen to what they said.
I want her text messages. Liz, release yours. Let us look at your text messages.
I actually don't care to read any of their text messages because they're all so aggressively boring. They're the most boring people. They're so predictable. It's like hang a piece of meat and they just grab it.
Okay, so after revealing that they acknowledged on the 6th how bad things were, despite continuing to downplay the violence, what does this new reaction say about them and their responsibility to their viewers?
I think it says that they feel absolutely no responsibility to their viewers, first of all. And secondly, it says that they have decided what side they're on. They have decided that they are with the insurrectionists, that they are perfectly willing to put the future of American democracy at risk because they think it will give them more power. I'm not really sure what the end game is for them, but they don't care what's at stake here. It also suggests that they are never going to acknowledge anything. And I think that's the strategy here, particularly with the right-wing media. They don't apologize. They don't correct themselves. They just engage in aggressive revisionist history. So their viewers never get the truth. And that's kind of terrifying.
But according to the Public Religion Research Institute, only a sliver of Republicans who trust and tune into Fox News and other far-right sources say that Donald Trump holds a lot of the blame for the riot. Do you think the text revelations, I mean, they're proof, right? A snapshot of proof there of the mindset. Will that change any minds of Fox News viewers?
I'm afraid it won't. And Alex, you know this as well or better than most people. The news is so siloed now. The ways in which people get information are so cut off and isolated that I think there's a really good chance that people who watch Fox News or OAN or Newsmax exclusively won't ever get the facts that the January 6th committee is putting out there. I think the fact that the committee is televising its hearings is extraordinarily important. But again, I think a significant number of Americans won't ever get that information. And I think Fox and people like Hannity and Ingraham are counting on them.
Yeah. So if you look at the headlines overall, Mary, there is a lot of concern out there that Donald Trump's planning a 2024 coup, or in fact, systematically laying the groundwork to steal the 2024 election at this point. On a scale of 1 to 10 in your mind, how concerning, how legitimate are these concerns for you? Do you think your uncle is going to run?
Well, as far as my concerns are definitely at a 10, wow. Partially because I don't think they're planning to, they're not just planning for a 2024 coup. They've never stopped the 2020 coup or the 2021 coup. This is all of a piece. The groundwork has been laid, and they're just continuing to work it at the levels of state legislatures, et cetera. So I don't know that there's any turning back here unless some very high level people begin to be held accountable. And whether or not Donald will run, if he's given the opportunity to, of course he will. You know, he needs the powers and protections of the Oval Office to get him out of the considerable trouble he could potentially be in the next 2 to 3 years. The real question, though, is why is he being allowed to run if indeed he does?
That is a question I think you ought to ask the head of the RNC and other different major influence Republican organizations. Those questions will be asked. Real quickly, my last one to you. What's your podcast all about? The Mary Trump Show. I'm excited for you.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I'm really excited about it too. I'm having so much fun. I've had 2 episodes so far, and basically it gives me the opportunity to do a really deep dive into the most important issues that are happening over the course of a week. And I get to talk to some brilliant people who teach me stuff that I certainly didn't know. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity, I think. And at this point, with 2022 coming up and 2024 elections coming up, it's all hands on deck. So any medium I can get into to help move the conversation along, the better. So I'm really grateful.
Okay. Well, I'm glad your voice is out there as well, both with your podcast and on our broadcast, too. Thank you so much, Mary Trump. Have a good one. The concern about Omicron.